It was quite a combination 1 year ago, talking about the picturesque, challenging Barber Motorsports Park and the battery tender global MX-5 Cup. We're ready to do it all again. I'm Mark Janes, happy to be joined by Nick Yeoman in the booth. And Nick, the season got off to a great start at the Circuit of the Americas.
Two tremendously competitive races that saw Brian Ortiz pick up the win in race number 1 and the rookie driver Celine Roulade score the victory in race number 2. Mark Janes, neither of those drivers are going to start in the top 5, though, as we go racing here at Barber.
And let's recap, specifically give you a look-see at what unfolded at the Circuit of the Americas in the season opener.
There's a Japanese saying, "Jinbai Itai." It's the horse and the rider as one. That's what I'm doing, you know? That's the emotional connection. I think that's what we're all doing, you know? The car's the horse and I'm the rider. My father's been in it since I was born. He was doing Formula Fords, open wheel stuff. Got into a little bit of Spec Miata. Once I was 15, started doing some autocross, and then got into Spec Miata doing track days. And when I was 16, got my SECA and NASA license and got a NASA championship my first year, and definitely turned some heads.
Welcome back to In Wheel Time here on Sports Map 94.1 FM. Celine Roulade.
Yep.
Did I do that right?
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this?
Doing MX-5 Cup?
Uh-huh.
Well, this is my first weekend.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And you're at number 4? Currently
Yeah.
qualified number 4.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to win the Mazda Road to 24 shootout. 19 drivers got invited as semifinalists for the shootout. And from there, they had to prepare a video as well as a business plan about Mazda and how you're gonna forward the brand.
In the next few minutes, I will outline my 2 to 3 year racing and marketing goals as I climb the Mazda Road to 24 ladder.
It was actually a business call with all the competitors, and they said the 4 names that went on. I was happy to hear my name. It was so exciting. Well, the 4 of us went to Chandler, Arizona, the Bob Bondurant School of Racing. They were judging us on consistency and how we took their critique, basically. They narrowed it down to 2, Tyler Casera and I, and then we had our own shootout. We win a $100,000 scholarship towards a season in Global MX-5 Cup.
You got the best of the best coming from all over North America, but then the cream rises to the top. And you know, when a panel of judges is unanimous in their decision, and to see someone like Celine be selected, to see the connection from our grassroots program, it doesn't get any better.
Celine Roulade, thank you very much for stopping by. It's a great story. Good luck to you. We're
Thank you very
pulling
much.
for you, bud.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
We are set to go racing here in Austin.
They're going to go 4 wide. That is going to shuffle back the pole sitter, John Dean II.
The expectation was to finish, get consistent finishes, because consistency does win in this series.
Boy, look at Brian Ortiz. That car steps out just a bit as they're going to go 3 wide for the lead. Roland stands on the throttle. He's going to push Ortiz wide. They're still door to door here in Austin, battling for the win in round 1. On the last couple corners out of the final corner, Jake, they're both getting sideways, heading for the start-finish line.
Oh, and Roland got loose, all kinds of activity, and Brian Ortiz to take the checkered flag, won a race today.
I was relieved that I finished 3rd, and my heart stopped. I saw the wall and definitely didn't want to go there. I kind of let go of the wheel and just kind of let it do its thing and held it, I guess, at the right time.
Almost. We're good. You're right there.
I mean, you made one heck of a pass back there on the carousel on the inside. I didn't even see it coming. That was awesome.
Good job, good job. That was awesome.
To get a podium on my debut, almost win it, it was amazing. So I graduated May 2017 from the University of Central Florida with a sociology degree. From there, I got a job actually with Classic Mazda, dealership in Orlando. I'm living the product, basically. It's all around me. I'm selling the cars. I know the brand. With the customer, it's about that emotional connection, and that's what they get. It's an enthusiast brand, and I'm obviously an enthusiast to this brand. I'm working during the day at the Mazda dealership, and now I'm living my dream here, being a professional driver, being a factory driver for Mazda. Long term, I would definitely love to move up the Mazda ladder, eventually end up in the prototype. That'll be the goal, you know, Mazda Road to 24. It's Celine's Road to 24. Let's just see if I can follow that ladder system and stay on it.
Celine Roulade, bad news for him in 6 sideways racing. He was scheduled to roll off in row number 2. That car will move to the rear of the grid because of the crew working on the car after the pre-grid had closed. That pace car is off, and they already starting to fan out.
Ortiz gets that good jump. As a matter of fact, this is a much better start for the leader than we saw yesterday. Celine Roulade has worked his way up into the 11th position.
Now more separation among the top 5. Those guys are really starting to pull away.
So now all of a sudden Roulade works his way in, trying to get into that front 5. The only thing between Celine Roulade and the leader Brian Ortiz is about 6 or 7 car lengths.
I just need it to be over. My heart is not going to last.
I know.
This might be the battle right here for the win. What an outstanding job here for that rookie in Celine Roulade, working his way from the back up to the front.
Push it. Don't need to push it. We still got time. We still got time.
Roulade going to try to take a peek to the inside. Nice move there for Celine Roulade.
We see a couple of offs. Ryan Hall stuck in the gravel.
This is almost a carbon copy of what we saw yesterday. Roland was in the lead late. There was the shootout at the end. Ortiz was able to get around him. This is a learning series. What did he learn yesterday? So Ortiz is right on his heels. Boy, he got a little bit loose. Green flag is out. We're back to racing. Ortiz going to try to work to the inside. Brian Ortiz going to try to take back over the lead. Battle up front, Ortiz with Roulade right there. Ortiz, he just gave up the lead once again. This time it's Roulade who gets past.
Now he's going to try to make a side-by-side move as the bottom of the racetrack opens up.
Come on, come on, come on.
The 87 of Roulade is shoved wide.
Yes! Oh my God. Just that last turn, it's that last turn.
Less than a minute to go. Does Brian Ortiz have anything left in an attempt to sweep this weekend? Side by side, but Roulade moves over, shoves him to the bottom of the racetrack. They both go very, 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 very wide. Checkered flag is out, and it looks like the rookie is going to go to victory lane here at Coda. What a spirited drive, but Roulade penalized in the pre-race, having to move to the rear of the field, charges all the way through and is going to go to victory lane.
Did you think you could race your way up to the front and win this thing?
Didn't expect that. Definitely going into the race, I was definitely upset with starting in the back, but people were being a little cautious, and I couldn't be cautious. I had to go forward, and once I started, I saw the front of the pack, and I was like, wow, I'm actually catching them. I'm still in shock, but wow, we won on our first weekend, 3rd and 1st, and starting from the back, that's crazy.
How are you feeling right now? You're feeling
Great,
alive?
I feel great, I feel alive. Mazda makes me feel alive.
Not starting in the rear of the field, Nick Yeoman, but he'll roll off on the inside of row number 5. So this should be a piece of cake.
Not so much, because there are certainly some talented drivers up there, but Celine Roulade, a tremendous rookie in this field. He's going to start in the 9th position mark in that Soul Red number 87. Got his work cut out for him, as we mentioned, some fast cars ahead of him.
Nathaniel Sparks and Joey Bickers will start on the front row, the 8 and 34 respectively. Then John Dean II and Nico Reger will start in row number 2. Lamb and Ortiz in row number 3. Oxter, Gresham, Wagner in row number 4, and then Roulade and Robert Stout, 2 fast race cars, as you mentioned, in row number 5.
Got a little help this weekend here for the Mazda MX-5 Battery Tender Cup, as Tony Laporta is going to have a bird's eye view of turn number 1. Tony, they're coming to you here momentarily out of the final corner. We're set to go racing here at Barber Motorsports Park. 2 races this weekend of the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup. Green flag, we wait to see it. There it is, and we are racing here at Barber. Tony Laporta as the field streams to turn number 1.
Guys, side by side down here into turn 1. Global MX-5 Cup champion from 2 years ago, Nathaniel Sparks, the man they call Sparky. Door to door with Joey Bickers as they roll through 1, now up the hill into 2. They're side by side, and don't expect them to change much as this race continues.
That formation pretty good. It stays that way, although they start to single file now as they come up out of turn number 3. They exit that an Alabama roller coaster, and they set sail for that Charlotte's Web portion of the course. Bickers has gone to P1 into turn number 5.
Yeah, nice jump for Bickers as he takes the top spot. Nathaniel Sparks has the second spot held down with the inside line through the Charlotte's Web portion of the racetrack as they roar back up the hill, though, Mark. Really nice start for Bickers because as we've seen in time to time, this race can get awful tight. These cars love going side by side. About a 4 or 5 car length advantage headed down to the museum. That's exactly what you wanted to see for the pole sit.
Todd Lamb, one of the cars that's on the move early on. He picked up a couple of spots, and he's looking to pick up a couple of more. Again, we'll keep our eye a little bit farther back. The 87 machine of Celine Roulade is the guy that gave it such a great drive in the wet, and then as it dried throughout the course of the day at COTA.
Yeah, and of course we already see him mixing it up there. Oh, as they're going 3 wide for about 8th or 9th place back. You got to get single file as they crawl back up the hill. But certainly, Mark, we're already seeing some drivers mix it up on this opening lap. Bickers is your leader as they're getting set to complete lap number 1, that final left-hand turn. Sparks has been kicked back to the 3rd position. It looks like John Dean is the driver that moves into the 2nd position. No, check that. That's Nico Reger who has moved into the 2nd position. But a really nice start for Mark Janes for Joey Bickers heading into turn 1.
Hey, got to welcome a group of Mazda employees at the new headquarters in Irvine, California. They are joining us today. It's a work day for them, kind of a work day for us too, but we're sure having a lot of fun. And the Garage Team Mazda folks in Costa Mesa, California. So all the great folks from Mazda enjoying the event here this afternoon for Barber Motorsports Park.
Yep, certainly a great series as we've seen some tremendous racing throughout the years here in the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich Tires. Further back in the field, seeing drivers going 2 and 3 wide. That's car 23. Pinkerton already making a look to the inside, trying to find some spots early in this race as things might have gotten single file up front, Mark Janes, but throughout this field, and there's a lot of cars here, 26 of them, they can really mix it up here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Well, it's one of our pit reporters down on pit road for this event is Jake Query. Hello, Jake.
Good afternoon to you, Mark. Good afternoon to folks watching this Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich Tires here from Barber Motorsports Park. A couple of things to look at, Mark, at the outset here. You guys had talked about, Nick had mentioned that John Dean II had worked his way up to 2nd, now finds himself in 4th. Keep in mind, he was the pole sitter when this season began and lost a little bit of traction at the outset of the races at the Circuit of the Americas. But there are much wider passing areas in Austin than you find here in Barber. It is a little bit more selective as to where you can find those opportunities on this particular track. Also want to take a look in and take a look at that rookie, Celine Roulade, who finds himself 8th. He had started 9th in this particular race. He has plenty of time, obviously, to make up ground, but Mark and Nick, what's interesting is what took place with him in 2 races in Texas. The first one where he, at the very end of the race, was passed by Ortiz in order to not get the checkered flag. Then race number 2, he comes back and he is able to hold off at the outset, or at the end of that race, I should say. So as we talked about, a little bit of a learning experience, and that's exactly what happened in the form of just 1 weekend here. But Joey Bickers is the leader, Nico Reger running 2nd.
Mark, they're already mixing it up. Look at Roland hanging the right side tires off in turn 5.
Yeah, and I look just ahead of them at the leaders, and Reger and Sparks are tucked in nose to tail as we have a couple of cars wadded up. The course stewards stand obscured our view just a little bit, but we see a couple of cars that come together on the course, stopped at the bottom side. Looks like at least one of them is going to be able to get back underway.
Yep, and that second car, that gray number 33 of Alex Pachora from Houston, Texas, from Slipstream Performance, has gotten underway as well. We're watching a tremendous battle. This is, again, Robert Stout leading that train. He's running in the 9th position. That's about 5 or 6 cars back from the leader as they're going 2. They were mixing it up, going 3 wide. We see the 2 winners from COTA are back there, and Ortiz hanging on the inside of Luke Oxner in the 77 as they go door to door. And then Celine Roulade is right there, an interested spectator, Mark, as we see cars going side by side through the final couple of corners here at Barber.
Yeah, Brian Ortiz is using all of the racetrack and then some, Nick, as he went through 9, 10, and 11, got up on the curbing just a little bit. Now they decide to tuck back in single file as they head down the main straightaway.
And up front, a good battle for the lead as Joey Bickers, who has been unchallenged for the first 3 laps, has a challenger in the form of Nico Reger, who is right there running in the second position, a couple car lengths back. He takes a more aggressive line to the inside as we see another car off track here at Barber Motorsports Park. That is car 53, Keith Jensen. But back up front, Mark Janes, bit of a 4-car breakaway with Bickers leading him down to turn 5.
Reger, Sparks, and Lamb. Lamb, last time by Nick, set the fastest lap of the race, so it would only make sense that he would start to join that what attempted to be a 3-car breakaway now as they exit turn number 5, set up for 6 and 7.
Man, that should be no surprise because Todd Lamb is a former champion of this series, very competitive, very fast driver, and as you mentioned, he has run down those front 3 as they make their way down the hill by the museum. It is still Bickers, Reger, Sparks, and Lamb. John Dean, that driver, running in 5th place.
Let's go back to pit road and Jake Query.
You had mentioned those that are watching in Irvine, California and around the Golden State working with Mazda, and Joey Bickers, one of those pretty familiar with California. Grew up there, started racing in motocross at the age of just 11, but then eventually worked his way towards 4 wheels. He leads this field right now, does Bickers. He's the 2013 Team USA Scholarship winner and then eventually got a Mazda scholarship just 5 years ago to accelerate his racing career. Now finds himself, of course, in this battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich Tires and running where he wants to be up front. But Mark, the reality is that's what is so great about this series, that scholarship money and the ability to be able to try to work your way up through different levels of racing.
Gresham Wagner really working on Robert Stout, Nick. That's the second group of cars that are now working their way through the Alabama roller coaster. That's the battle for the 6th position.
Move Todd Lamb up another spot as we saw Nathaniel Sparks take the right side tires off the racetrack in that final corner heading out of the front straightaway. He went a little wide, kicked up some dirt, and that allowed Todd Lamb and that black and blue MX-5 to creep into the 3rd spot. Further back though, Mark, here comes Brian Ortiz looking to the inside of that number 5 for Wagner.
And he is going to make the pass, and also the 77 of Luke Oxter is going to go with him. So he'll lose a couple of spots now off of turn number 6 before he can get back into the throttle.
Watching Nico Reger, though, just kind of stalking our leader, Joey Bickers here in the first 4 laps, has a really good race car, and we kind of saw this at COTA as well. Reger's a guy who's got some experience under his belt in this series, has a very fast race car, and right now, Mark Janes, looks like he's just trying to put the pressure on Bickers, one of the young drivers in this championship from Moore Park, California.
Boy, they can get so much speed down what is essentially the back straightaway, and a little wiggle there, and he made the pass.
Well, I said it. I don't think he was setting him up. He was waiting for him to make a mistake, and a big mistake for Joey Bickers as he's not only going to lose the lead, he loses 2nd to Todd Lamb. Now he's under attack from Nathaniel Sparks, as Sparks will go to the outside. They're going to be door to door. Bickers has the inside advantage, so a little damage control, Mark, as he'll settle in 3rd. But what a great job by Nico Reger as we see another car kicking up some dirt further back in the pack.
Yeah, and coming up the main straightaway, came off of that final turn. That's the 77 of Luke Oxter. We have seen him literally throwing it around this racetrack, and he came wide off of 17 and got off of the dirt, kicked a bunch of it up, and lost a couple of positions as a result.
Nice pass by Hernan Palermo to get into the inside of Ashton Harrison, the only female in this field. As they're mixing it up, Mark Janes, we're seeing a lot of good battling. It doesn't matter if it's the IndyCar Series, Indy Lights, or here in the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup. Drivers really love this racetrack. Free-flowing, it's fast, it's a momentum track, and you can use it to your advantage to get past the drivers here at Barber.
Reger, Lamb, Bickers, and Sparks continue to duke it out among the top 4. John Dean II is looking to close up on that foursome now as they head toward that fabulous Barber Museum in turn number 8.
Yeah, that's a part of the racetrack where it is so tough to hit it perfectly because you have to go up and over the curbing. The front 4 did a pretty nice job there as they are running in tandem through the S's down the backstretch in front of a lot of fans that have already made their way out to Barber Motorsports Park here in Leeds, Alabama. It's Nico Reger, your leader here at Barber Motorsports Park. A good battle for 2nd shaking up though now as Bickers looking aggressive trying to get around Todd Lamb, and Nathaniel Sparks is right there in 4th, Mark, as he looks to the inside.
Let's check in with Tony on pit road.
You know, guys, as the racing picks up down here, we see Nico Reger out in front, and I got to spend time in the false grid right before these cars rolled out to kick off round 3 of the 2018 season, and Reger joked. I said, what do you need to do to win this race, Nico? And he goes, well, I'm starting 4th, so past 3 cars. And just the mood and the lightness down on pit lane and false grid before any of these global MX-5 Cup races is always fun. It's always light. This is some of the most intense racing you're going to see every weekend, but these drivers still have this amazing ability to stay lighthearted and joke. John Dean, who's fighting to get up into the front right now, he said, well, we're going to have to go real fast for about 45 minutes. And I think that just speaks to the competition, but also the kind of drivers you're going to see competing every weekend in the Global MX-5 Cup. It was light, it was fun down on false grid and pit lane, but as soon as this green flag is flown, you guys have seen the racing here. Every round is just as intense as anything you're going to see.
That's like asking a football coach, what you got to do to win today? Well, I think if we outscore them, we'll be good. I mean,
just score more points, right?
It's just that simple. The incident we saw earlier between the 33 and the 14 under review, and the 14 of Kyle Kimball is serving a drive-through right now for avoidable contact. So we see him working down pit road to serve that drive-through penalty, and you can see the front end of that car just a little messed up as he heads down toward turn number 1.
Yep, he certainly got into the back pretty hard there, so tough break for that driver from South Carolina, Anderson, South Carolina. So this almost kind of a home race for him. Certainly probably has some friends and family in attendance. Back up front, though, it is Nico Reger, and Mark, that 4-car breakaway has kind of turned into a 7-car pack as it's Reger, Lamb, Bickers, Sparks, Dean, Stout, and Ortiz now have joined the conversation up front.
Bickers and Sparks, the two not playing nice for now. Sparks wants that position. He's working all over Bickers now as the front two start to pull away a little bit. Certainly Reger right now as they head down the main straightaway, Nick. He appears to be the most comfortable out of that 4 or 5, what's turning into a 6, maybe a 7-car breakaway now, because we also see trying to enter into that fray is Brian Ortiz in that 4-car.
Yep, Ortiz, one of the winners to start this season at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. He is that 7th car in line. You mentioned white car with a green cage. He has been very fast, but we may have a battle shaping up front. Here comes Todd Lamb. He's close right on the back bumper. Mark, he'll take a look to the inside of Reger to turn 5.
Bickers is taking a look to the high side, and it looks like the 84 is going to pull off the pass. He works his way off the turn, but those front 3, they're using the bumpers a little bit now as they head toward turn number 6.
Yeah, Todd Lamb makes the pass, and then he kind of asks Nico Reger, hey, I need a little help. Can you push me down this back straightaway? He will, and Reger he gets some of the advantage as well, as that puts him back into the 2nd position. But look at these cars, Mark, nose to tail in MX-5.
Reger, Lamb, Bickers, Sparks, Dean, Stout, Ortiz, Wagner, Roland, and Oxner, your top 10 as we head back to pit road and Jay Query.
An area that Nick Yeoman just pointed out, nose to tail, is one of the trickier areas of this racetrack. They just worked their way through a 90-foot elevation change. It is a long sweeping, if you will, spiral that is a right-handed turn. And when you get to the bottom of it, I remember Elio Castroneves in the Verizon IndyCar Series, the 3-time Indy 500 winner, telling me one of the trickiest things is once you get to the bottom of it, trying to get that car back into the middle of the track because of how the energy is trying to push you to the outside. So there are a lot of different areas here as we watch them literally nose to tail going into turn number 1. They're going to try to set up again in a couple of turns for that elevation change, but they're going to do so with a battle once again for the lead.
You could tell Reger took a peek for a moment, Nick, as they approached turn number 1, but I think he has it in his memory bank that turn number 5 might be a little bit better passing zone.
No, you're absolutely right. You can pull off passes and down in turn number 1 if you get a good run and the guy in front of you makes a mistake, but that is still a really dicey area. This part of the racetrack that he's approaching, this is your best passing spot. Here he comes, Mark James, to the inside.
To the bottom of the racetrack, and we see Bickers back there as well. That's the front 3, and Sparks and Dean and Stout, they also want a part of all of this. Side by side is the battle for 2nd toward turn number 6.
Yeah, great pass by Reger as he takes the lead, and now Todd Lamb is kind of hung on the outside. He's going to have to slide back in 3rd to protect that spot from Nathaniel Sparks. That moves Bickers up to the 2nd spot, but Mark, they were 3 wide down there in turn number 5 and making it look easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but they were making it look easy as these little cars can get awful wide here at Barber Motorsports.
Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup, and Nick, with what we saw at the Circuit of the the Americas a few weeks ago and what we saw throughout the course of last season. This competitive racing is nothing new.
Boy, and Bickers just got alongside Reger. They both made contact. Lamb's going to come up the inside. Both of those drivers miraculously saved those cars. I don't know how they didn't end up out in the grass or up against one of the guardrails here at Barber Motorsports Park. And Bickers is charging right back on the rear bumper of Reger as they fall out of the top 2 spots. Lamb and Sparks takes the top 2 spots now, Mark, as they roar out of the final corner. But that was awful close to the S's.
Yeah, that's not the fast way around here for sure. I mean, that's going to cost you a couple of positions and a lot of dirt and dust. They are flat flinging it around here. What a competitive series.
And there's a look at Celine Roulade back there in the 8th position right now. A little surprised that he hasn't been able to charge up and contend with these front 7 as he's got Luke Oxner all over the back of his Mazda MX-5. The sole red colors, of course, Mazda's branding as he's the scholarship winner and getting a chance to compete in this series. Once again, though, Mark, they're battling for 3rd as John Dean looks to the inside of Reger.
Yeah, Dean has been hanging around in the top 5 over the past couple of laps, and Reger gets off the corner just a little quicker, and now he's going to slip over and make the block now as they set up for 6-7.
Boy, this is just spectacular racing here in Leeds, Alabama. If you've never been to Barber Motorsports Park, put it on your calendar and get here sometime to watch a race, because this is a fast-flowing, exciting racetrack, and these MX-5 cars putting on a show. Again, it's Lamb, Sparks, Reger, your front 3. John Dean runs in 4th. Robert Stout is 5th. He's got Joey Bickers all over the rear of his car in 6th. Brian Ortiz is 7th. And that 7-car breakaway mark so far through 9 laps is kind of held strong as Celine Roulade, the rookie driver who won in Austin, currently sits in 8th.
Well, I think that tells you what's happening with the front runners as hard as they're running. As the tires start to go away just a little bit, that allows those behind them to start to catch up, especially those guys through positions like Bickers and Ortiz and Roland. Those guys that they not only been saving those tires, Nick, but they've pretty much been running nose to tail while the guys up front mix it up a little bit. That's what allows them to close the gap.
And I don't know if Roland could have seen that dust up that we had about a lap and a half ago, but he's got to hope for more of it, as again we see another pass for the lead as Nathaniel Sparks will now go to the point. But that's what he needs, and Oxner needs, and Ashton Harrison, those drivers running in 8th, 9th, and 10th. Mark, they need these guys to mix it up if they're going to catch that lead group.
Sparks should give the assist to Reger because he literally shoved him down the straightaway before they went side by side into turn number 1. So again, they'll go side by side into turn number 5. Lamb to the bottom side. That's Reger to the outside. They'll stay side by side at the exit of turn number 5.
Boy, Lamb does a great job. He can really turn on that wheel and get that car to turn at the bottom of the hill in turn 5. Not sure he had the advantage to get around Sparks. He'll have to duck in line. Now he pops to the inside as he looks for the lead through this downhill portion of the racetrack. Here, Mark, they've got to get single file, but boy, John Dean and Robert Stout are beating and banging.
They are beating and banging. They're doing so positions 1 through 7. Let's keep an eye on that battle, get a couple of updates from pit road.
We had mentioned the positions 1 through 7 right on cue, because you look at 7 and 8, Mark, and to tell you about the depth of this series, the 2 that we saw win in Texas now running in the 7th and 8th position in the form of Brian Ortiz and Celine Roulade respectively. Now in front of them, as you talked about, Lamb, Sparks, Reger, all have been very familiar with the front of the field. But another one, tip of the cap to Herman Palermo, because he had a very, very busy weekend in Texas, had cars around him nearly at all times, was extremely racy. He was in 11th just a lap ago, now has fallen down to 12th. Tony?
Yeah, guys, and Mark and Nick, this is something that I'm interested to hear your opinion on when we go back upstairs. But a lot's going on in the first 2 weekends of the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup. After the departure of IndyCar Series official Vince Kramer, who was the race director for this series all of last season, and 3 weeks ago in Austin, Texas at Circuit of the Americas for the opening 2 rounds. This weekend coming to Alabama at Barber Motorsports Park, Kyle Novak, who's enjoying his first year at the head of the ship for IndyCar, has stepped in to run the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup. And we all remember last weekend in Long Beach, California, where he made a lot of, it sounds like we got yellow flags flying, guys. We'll go back up to you.
Yeah, Mark, it looks like we've, sorry, Tony, we'll jump in here. We got a car really slow down the front straightaway here. That is car number 9, Jesse Schmidt. Jake Query, you had a bird's eye view of what happened.
As he came onto the straight, the car literally just got away from him. Now, he did a remarkable job of keeping it off of that inside line. This is essentially, if you will, the wall dividing the main straight from pit road itself. He got sideways, locked it up, but was able to turn the car around and keep it going. Nice job from Schmidt to make sure that he didn't have any contact there.
So, local caution only, and I think they retracted that flag quickly, as Jake said, able to get it back underway, and we maintained that competitive level of racing that we've seen throughout the first half of this race. Sparks continues P1, then Lamb, Reger, Dean, Stout, Ortiz, and Bickers, and Roland, Oxter, and Wagner, the top 10 in a couple of cars among the front runners, Nick, laying on one another to the point where we're starting to see a bit of damage here and there.
Yeah, and quickly want to touch up and tidy up the point that Tony Laporta was making with the change in leadership. Kyle Novak's done a pretty good job with the Verizon IndyCar Series. Of course, the IndyCar Series involved in the Mazda MX-5 Global Cup here, so I don't think we're going to see much change from an idea of how they want these races officiated. And so far, Mark, you talked about it, we've seen these drivers lean on each other quite a bit. In fact, that 34 car of Joey Bickers, our pole sitter, we saw a little left front damage on that car. He's continued on in this main group, doing a nice job. But certainly these guys are leaning on each other as everyone continues to chase Nathaniel Sparks.
You wonder at this point if Lamb is just not lying in wait a little bit along with Reger. Now let's go back and take a look at the replay, see what happened to that 9 machine.
Yep, and we see this so often. These drivers love to push these cars to the limits, exiting that final corner on the front straightaway. And the number 9 of Jesse Schmidt just got those right sides off the racetrack. And when it caught Mark, boy, it hooked him. Very lucky not to make contact with the inside wall.
Yeah, it was a very wide portion, very unforgiving portion of the race course, Dick. And I guess if you're going to have it off or you're going to lose the balance of the race car, that's an ideal spot to do it because, as you mentioned, it's very unforgiving.
Yep, and with that spin, Schmidt has fallen down to the 22nd position as we run here at Barber Motorsports Park. 12 laps in the books. Mark James, a 45-minute race, 23 minutes to go. Lots of time as we've nearly reached the halfway point here for the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich. 3-car breakaway right now. I was a little surprised as we've seen a lot of door-to-door action so far here today. It's Nathaniel Sparks, Todd Lamb, and Nico Reger with, I would say, about a 10-car length advantage down the front straightaway here at Barber.
We get the feeling it's going to be temporary as the 84 of Todd Lamb, again, he looked like he might have popped out a little bit as they got to the start-finish line, but then decided to tuck back in behind and go single file. He's got a protective position from Reger, but we'll see if this time by, Nick, through turn number 5, best passing zone on the race course, we'll see if he takes advantage of it there.
Yeah, Sparks got a little wide through the Alabama roller coaster, and Lamb was certainly on it. Tucks right up in along the back of that white, green, and orange number 8. Not fast enough to make a move to the inside down there in turn 5. Now they accelerate out of that corner, back up the hill, and again, Nico Reger is right there. He's been awful strong today as well as those 3 streak away from the rest of the pack.
Well, Sparks wanted, he knew that Lamb wanted the inside, Nick, as they approached turn number 5. He looked like he was going to go a little higher groove about the middle of the racetrack, and then all of a sudden he slipped over and shut the door on the bottom. And again, not only does he have to be aware of what's going on in front of him with Sparks, but he can't open the door to the bottom of the racetrack because Reger is there as well.
And getting a note from race control that Robert Stout was issued a warning for blocking Joey Bickers in turn number 1. So Robert Stout, one of those drivers who sits in 5th right now, he's all over the back of Brian Ortiz. Warned for blocking here, Mark. We've seen a lot of aggressive moves let go, but certainly these drivers have to take care of each other as well.
Well, this Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup, I tell you, there's no rest for the weary, for sure. I mean, the level of concentration among these drivers, because these cars are so evenly matched, I mean, it is impressive to see what they're able to do throughout the course of the event. And just those front 3 right now, Nick, I mean, there has been literally no break for those front 3 over the last 4 or 5 laps or so.
And here comes Robert Stout. He'll move into the 4th position as he gets to the inside of Brian Ortiz, as Ortiz kicked up a little dirt out of the final corner. So Stout moves into the 4th position. Mark, this is round 3 of 12 here in the 2018 Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup season, as we see Ashton Harrison has a problem in that red MX-5 as she has taken quite a spin into the gravel trap here at Barber Motorsports Park. She's got that car in reverse, but Mark, we caught the tail end of that. You could see the tire marks of the ride that she took here around the course at Barber Motorsports.
Ortiz and Stout mixing it up a little bit in turn number 5. That's a battle for position. That's a battle for the 4th spot. Meanwhile, the leaders continue that level of separation. Talking about Sparks, Lamb, and Reger. Those guys still trying to check out on the rest of that field. But, Nick, we get the feeling that group behind them of 5 or 6 cars could catch them in a hurry.
Yeah, they certainly did at the midway point of this race. But what doesn't help is seeing guys like Luke Oxner and the number 5 of Gresham Wagner go side by side as Wagner pulls off that pass and moves into the 9th position as they roar back up the hill. Though you're right, Mark, I mean, you have to kind of work together, use a little drafting. There are a couple long straightaways here at Barber Motorsports Park where you can work together, roar through the RPMs, and gain on some opponents that are ahead of you. But certainly those guys are going to have to work together as 2 or 3 cars have stretched ahead. And Mark, here is a replay of what happened to Ashton Harris.
It is, again, you get wide on this course and you get off of that curbing, and then all of a sudden the grip of that race car goes away. And very, very fortunate, Nick, to end up relatively unscathed. Went through both sides of the racetrack, crossed across the entire racetrack, and luckily no one was able to, no one collected that car.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think we saw someone have a similar incident there in turn 1 a year ago and was not able to get that car corrected and made pretty heavy contact with the outside wall. So you're right, Ashton Harrison, very fortunate to spin that car into the gravel trap, get it refired, and rejoin the action. She has tumbled all the way down to the 17th position, now 18th mark, and she was having a nice day just outside the top 10.
Talk about a rarity. We had a car get upside down on the start here a year ago that they're quite frankly not used to in the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup Series. Jake Query's on pit road. Jake?
Interesting thing that happens about this point in the race, one would presume, Mark, and that's the fact that, look, we know how good those BF Goodrich tires are. Let's talk about that in terms of Circuit of the Americas. As we talked about, they were in different conditions in both races. One of them essentially on wets, even though it was more just a mist, but nonetheless challenging atmospheric conditions for the drivers, and those BF Goodrich tires gave them the necessary grip. We saw 2 great races, but now you come here to Barber Motorsports Park, what you have is different rubber compounds from the different series that have run here before this particular event today, and as a result of that, different rubber laid down. Now we are at the point where presumably a lot more of that BF Goodrich has rubbered in on this track and is agreeable to the tires. But the challenge for these drivers as they're learning their way up through here is the fact that their tires now, as by design, starting to go away a little bit. So it gives you a little bit less confidence. So just at the time that the surface itself is starting to be agreeable with those BF Goodriches, the BF Goodriches are saying, well, now's the time where we're going to see just how much control you have over that machine. Part of what makes the excitement here is you watch Nathaniel Sparks, Todd Lamb, Nico Reger, for example, up front, trying to hold on one of them to get that victory.
Front 3, again, the separation continues, but Nick Yeoman from 4th on back to about 10th. It's anything but decided.
Yeah, we're seeing one heck of a slugfest between Gresham Wagner and Luke Oxner. That is for the final spot in that 10-car train, as it looks like Oxner has moved into that spot, taken it away from Wagner. Now he sets his sight on Celine Roulade. You know, Jake talked about some of the rubber that's laid down. You know, one of the other issues that these drivers are going to be faced with is some of the dirt and rocks and gravel that they themselves have kicked onto the racetrack throughout the course of this event with so much great battling. Mark, I saw a head-on shot down the front straightaway, and out of the final corner down the front stretch, there is a lot of dirt that's been kicked up by these drivers pushing the limits of this racetrack.
Might be a bit of an issue for Wagner, Nick, after he lost those positions. He's not keeping pace with that battle between 4th and 10th. He slipped back to the 10th position after Oxner was able to pass him, and he's losing sight of that draft a little bit. Hopefully he'll come off of turn number 17, get back into the throttle and able to rejoin that battle.
Up front, how about the experience paying off so far today, Mark? Nathaniel Sparks and Todd Lamb, 2 former champions of this series, and working together down the front stretch as we saw Lamb giving Sparks a pretty good shot into turn number 1.
A little friendly reminder that he's still there just in case he didn't realize that. Those front 3 through that Alabama roller coaster. Tony's on pit road.
Yeah, guys, and just one thing that I wanted to bring up that I don't know if we've had a chance to talk much about, but here in 2018 on the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup, an addition of 2 categories on track. You've got the Challenger Cup, which is kind of being described as a gentleman racers level for the guys that do a lot of track day and aren't really used to the wheel-to-wheel competition. It's the same car, same technical product, but they're out here racing in a little bit of a lower experience level. And then you have the Masters category, which is for drivers 40 and up. You'll see the M next to the drivers in the timing and scoring competing in that. Todd Lamb running second right now, but he's leading the way in Masters. Again, same car, same technical package, same everything. He's taking the fight to Sparky right now. We could see a Masters driver get out of here with the overall win.
Bickers and Ortiz had enough of this threesome, Nick Yeoman. Looks like they want to make it a 5-car battle.
Certainly seems like it, and just got word that we are approaching close to 200 passes on the racetrack mark, and we've still got 14 and a half minutes to go, my friend. This has been some tremendous stuff. Up front, over here over the last couple laps, it seems like things have settled in, but you and I have watched enough of these races to know that it's that rubber band effect. As soon as these drivers feel like, hey, maybe 1 or 2 is going to pull away, give them a couple laps, they're going to string right back together. And certainly with 14 and a half minutes to go, we're going to have a good battle for the win in race number 3 here at Barber.
Well, the performance of the entire field at Circuit of the Americas race number 2, given the conditions with wets and with the way the racetrack drive, I think we saw a bunch of young, talented race car drivers and the future on display for sure.
Oh, Celine Roulade, put on an absolute show. As we got one car sideways, that's Todd Lamb. He was trying to negotiate some lap traffic. Things stacked up. They went 2 and 3 wide, and that driver who Tony talked about was leading the Masters class is now going to tumble out of the top 5. What a tough break for Todd Lamb. Up front, Mark, we still see Nathaniel Sparks and Nico Reger now starting to check out on the rest of the field. Lamb's got that car refired, but boy, what a brutal mistake and costly error there.
Unbelievable turn of events, and again, that is the fine line, and anytime you encounter traffic, a lot of things, and I don't know, that 84 car, he's in some trouble, Nick, because he's not back at speed. He is limping slowly through turn number 5 and 6. He's not back up to full song. There might be some damage with that race car.
Yeah, we just saw the replay. It looked like a contact with Joey Bickers. Again, they were trying to go 2 or 3 wide. That's a tough part of the racetrack to try to make that work. And again, brutal set of circumstances for Todd Lamb, as you mentioned. Tumbles out of the top 5 and now just has to see if that car's okay. He took a pretty wild ride through the gravel trap.
13 minutes to go in this race, and what a good one it has been. Plenty of racing left, though, and you see just how fine the line is between victory and defeat. The 84 of Todd Lamb with issues, and his day may very well be done. And as we speak, we see Sparks and Reger headed into turn number 1.
Yeah, and there's Todd Lamb slowly bringing that car back, and now we see through turn number 1 the front 2 that have got a probably good 15-car breakaway. Sparks and Reger at the line this past lap mark. 2.2 seconds was the advantage from Sparks back to 3rd place running Brian Ortiz. So those front 2, if they take care of each other, that's going to be a tough gap to make up.
Hey, happy to have with us in the broadcast booth here our good friend Mo Murray. Mo, happy to have you back with us this year, and outstanding racing so far here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Thank you, Mark and Nick. Yes, outstanding racing. MX-5 Cup racing is always outstanding, as we saw at COTA 2 weeks ago and now with this race. I do want to say, though, we have a lot of people at home tuned in to watch this race. We had a little bit of a technical glitch at the start of the live stream, and we didn't get to push that stream out until the race was well into its running. So for those people who tuned in to watch, I apologize. It's on us. We will post the whole race when we're done here, and we'll make it up to you. But now that it's working, you're getting to see some fantastic racing here.
And you got folks watching in Irvine, California. We also have folks watching in Costa Mesa, California. And thanks for your patience, and thanks for staying with us. Back to pit road and Jay Query.
The day is done indeed for Todd Lamb. When I came down, he just pulled his car in. He went straight off of pit road to take it back to the hauler area. When I asked the team if he had given any indication what was happening to the car or if something simply went away, the answer was simple. Yeah, we got punted twice. The second one ran him through the kitty litter. We're done, they said. Todd Lamb brought his car in, took it straight down pit road and right back off of the circuit, back towards the hauler area, guys.
Yeah, it's a tough break. As you mentioned, Jake, it got awful tight down there in turn 1, and there was definitely some contact between Vickers and the car of Todd Lamb. So chance at victory goes awry, Mark Janes, but up front, still 2.2 seconds the gap from Sparks and Reger back to Brian Ortiz and Robert Stout. Seeing those two drivers, though, starting to get in line, see if they can draft their way back up to the front. They've got Vickers right there running in 5th. If those 3 cars can work together, I think we may have a chance to catch up.
Yep, Ortiz and Stout running pretty tight, as you mentioned, off of turn number 5, the setup for turn number 6. Those 3 continue to try to track down the leaders, and while they do, we'll head back to pit road. Tony?
Yeah, guys, this is really surprising because calling all the MX-5 Cup racing for the track PAs last year, I'll be honest with you, I don't think you guys can even remember. I know I can't remember seeing a lead this big, this late in the race like the one Sparks and Reger have over the rest of the field. But the cars I want to focus on and get your guys' opinion about, Brian Ortiz and Robert Stout. Stout started this race in the 10th position. He told me he knew he couldn't win the race in corner number 1, but his goal was to be top 5 by the end of that first lap. We saw Brian Ortiz and Robert Stout have masterfully clean and close races back in Austin, Texas a few weeks ago, and I think I might have just cursed. I'm not sure who the driver that went off there is. I hope it's not Stout. It sounds like the 77 of Luke Ochsner, but Ortiz and Stout, if those two can work together and draft their way up to the front and join our 2 leaders of Sparky and Reger, we're going to see some epic racing because Ortiz and Stout, they already showed us they can do that 3 weeks ago in Austin, Texas.
Back here at Barber Motorsports Park, Nathaniel Sparks is your leader, this time across the line. 1.3 seconds the lead over 3rd place running Brian Ortiz. So Mark, slowly but surely, Ortiz and Stout and Vickers starting to run down those front leaders. Further back in the pack, though, we've seen a lot of action. Celine Roulade made a pass, and Luke Ochsner has taken some interesting lines, to say the least, around Barber Motorsports Park.
Yeah, Wagner continues to battle it out. He lost a couple of positions earlier, but has come storming back for sure. No matter where you look, when you're talking about the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup, Nick, no matter where you look, you're going to see racing and close quarters racing. There's battles all over the racetrack. Pinkerton, Henderson, 2397, Koskinen in the 71. Those guys have hooked up from time to time, and that's the battle around the 13th position. So no matter where you look, there's close quarters racing here all over the racetrack at Barber Motorsports Park.
This is the battle for 8th right here as John Dean trying to hold off Luke Ochsner and Mo, again, seeing some tremendous racing here at Barber.
Well, picking up on Mark's point about close racing all around the racetrack, one of the things we're most proud of at Mazda is the parity in this series. These cars are all identical. They all come off the boat from Japan as production cars. They go from Jacksonville up to Statesville, North Carolina, and our partners at Long Road Racing build every one of these cars, and they're all identical. There's a fantastic quality control process in place there, and that's what makes the racing in this series on the racetrack so good. It truly is a driver's championship, and by that I mean things like drivers who can manage tires early in the race, late in the race, those kind of things, but there's no technical advantage. The car at the back of the grid and the car at the front of the grid are absolutely the same, and that's what leads us to this kind of racing.
And Bill, you and I were talking before we went on the air, just the price point and by design and the overall series itself led to a new venue for you guys to wrap up your season here in 2018. That's an interesting story.
Sure, yeah. We will finish our season in September at Monticello Motor Club in New York. Monticello is it's a country club for racers. It's sort of like a golf club for people who want to drive race cars instead of golfing. And there's a lot of guys park very expensive cars there, Ferraris and Porsches and Lamborghinis, and take them out once in a while and play with them. And they wanted something that could have a little more fun in. So several of those guys bought MX-5 Cup cars as a track day car. And the series president, or the club president, races in our series every once in a while. And so they came to us and said, we'd like to host the final round of your series in 2018. And we're very, very excited to go there. It's a beautiful venue. It's a long track, beautiful venue about an hour outside of New York City. And it will lend itself, I think, to some very good racing.
Good stuff for sure. Nick Yeoman, clock continues to wind down. Is it go time with about 6.5 to go?
I would say so, yeah, as Nathaniel Sparks continues to lead here. Sparky's got just a couple car length advantage over Nico Reger. Those two have run 1-2 for the majority of this race. I should say for the last 4 or 5 laps. It's been pretty competitive up front. But the thing we're watching, Mark, is 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That is Brian Ortiz, Robert Stout, Joey Vickers, Just a couple laps ago, they were 2.2 seconds behind a couple football fields. Now as they roar down the front straightaway with just under 6 minutes to go, they're there, Mark. Brian Ortiz has caught the tail end of this pack. Not sure that Celine Roulade, who runs in 6th, Gresham Wagner in 7th, John Dean in 8th. I don't know if they've got the time to make up a massive gap. Looks like it's going to be a 5-car battle to settle this race here with 5.5 minutes to go.
Reger's pressure is just relentless in the shadows of that world-class museum here at Barber Motorsports Park as they work their way back up the hill and go what is essentially down that back straightaway. Reger is right in the tire tracks, and the pressure, as we said, continues on first place running Sparks.
Yep, roaring out of turn number 5. Brian Ortiz gets a nice run as he distances himself a little bit from Robert Stout. Ortiz is a guy that, of course, went to victory lane in the race number 1 to kick off the season. We haven't seen him up front so far today, Mark. It's been a very veteran, methodical way, though, to charge up through the field, and lo and behold, with under 5 minutes to go, he's right there with a chance to win. That's how you win championships.
Yeah, the pressure usually comes. Again, the guy running P2, we saw throughout the course of last season, that usually has the best shot and seems to be able to force that leader into making a mistake now. So it's Sparks, Reger, Ortiz, Stout, and Bickers, your top 5. A very tricky handling portion of the race course now, Nick Yeoman, through 15, 16, and 17.
And these 5 drivers are 5 that we expect to compete for the championship. Nathaniel Sparks could probably use the win the most out of these 5 as he comes into this weekend. I know it's early. We're only 2 races into the season, but this is only a 12-round championship, so every race certainly means a lot. Nathaniel Sparks, your leader, comes into this weekend 9th in points, so he could really use the win. Nico Reger, who runs 2nd, he is currently 3rd in points. Stout, who is he's your points leader, currently runs in 3rd. And then the drivers just outside of that top 3. Robert Stout, who runs 4th, he is 4th in points. And then Joey Bickers, who runs 5th, sits 6th in points. So, Mark, all of these drivers up front, we expect to see them week in, week out battling for this title.
Reger took a peek into turn number 1, and as he did, that allowed Ortiz to close. Now he closes just a little bit on the leader. Reger all over Sparks, Nick, into turn number 5.
Boy, they're all being so very patient as Reger didn't want to take a look to the inside of Sparks for the lead. I thought he was going to open up the door for Ortiz, but they'll single file once again. Now here comes Reger as he's going to look for the lead, Mark, to the inside of Nathaniel Sparks.
He'll stay to the inside of Nathaniel Sparks, want to grab the spot. They stay side by side. Looks like he's going to slip in front of him now at turn number 8.
3 minutes to go. Let's get one more check of pit lane from Tony Laporta.
Yeah, guys, I just stopped and talked to Chad McCumbee, half of the McCumbee-McAleer racing team that fields those cars in 4th and 5th place of Robert Stout and Joey Bickers. I asked Chad, who he himself, quite an accomplished racer, doing everything from NASCAR to into all kinds of sports car racing. I said, what do you think? Are your drivers saying anything? He goes, honestly, no, they've been silent, which of course speaks to the competitiveness and level of intensity that you have to go fast out here. He said, I don't know if we have enough for him, but as this battle picks up front between Sparks and Reger, now Chad McCumbee sits up on his golf cart. He knows his drivers in 4th and 5th have a shot here, but again, it's very intense in that top 5. Neither Stout or Bickers are saying a word on the radio. They know it's go time here, and their team owner is watching eagerly.
Yeah, Stout and Bickers trying to keep pace. The front 3 now with Reger into turn number 1. Sparks is in tow, and Ortiz is right there.
Under 2.5 minutes to go here at Barber Motorsports Park, and Mo, it's getting awful tight up front.
And the reason I'm jumping in here, I'm watching Brian Ortiz. He's very methodical. He's marched his way up to the rear bumper of Sparks' car, and I would definitely not count him out of this race so far, especially as these 2 go side by side and start racing. Brian is from the island of Puerto Rico. He represents the island of Puerto Rico very well. Barber Motorsports is sponsor, or the Mazda distributor down there, or close to the Mazda distributor down there. And we know the island had another blackout this week, and they're still struggling with problems from their hurricane last year. And so I think it's fair to give a shout out to the fans in Puerto Rico watching this live stream, and to Brian, who represents you all so very well.
And when he won the race at Circuit of the Americas, Mark, one of the first things Brian Ortiz said was, hey, this is for the people of Puerto Rico who are still struggling for the storm. They got to be awful proud as he's now moved into the 2nd position around Nathaniel Sparks. They all try to run down Nico Reger here, again, with 1.5 minutes to go at Barber Motorsports Park.
Reger through the S's down that back straightaway, and there are a whole gaggle of 12 cars in hot pursuit, again, as they head toward that 12-13 complex.
Yeah, those teammates in 4th and 5th look like they're getting a little aggressive as Bickers is trying to find a way around Robert Stout. Not sure they've got anything for the front three, though, as those guys have been awful racy. It's Reger, then followed by Brian Ortiz, then Nathaniel Sparks, Robert Stout, and Joey Bickers. The front five as they make their way out of the final turn. And Mark, they will see the white flag here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Yeah, white flag is out. Does anyone have anything for Reger? Back of the pack, Stout jumps out of line, but he has to jump right back into line so he doesn't lose that 4th spot.
A lot of movement further back, but all for naught as they're all trying to catch Nico Reger. Does Brian Ortiz from Puerto Rico have anything for him? Nathaniel Sparks was shown the bumper by Robert Stout. That'll kick Sparks back to the 5th position. Up front, though, Mark, all eyes on the front two.
Yep, Reger and Ortiz headed toward turn number 5. Ortiz tries to get to the bottom of the racetrack, has to stay to the high side. Great job by Reger protecting the bottom. Bumped him a little bit upon exit. They'll stay nose to tail as Reger washes up wide of the exit at turn number 5.
He wasn't able to get him at the bottom of the hill in turn 5, so this is probably your next best spot. But Nico Reger got a fantastic run out of that corner. Now they go back down the hill by the museum. Ortiz all over the back of that 01 machine as Robert Stout and his teammate are slugging it out further back as Joey Bickers, they're battling for the final step on the podium. Up front, though, Mark, Nico Reger's doing a tremendous job holding on.
Still watching the 28 of Stout and the 34 of Bickers beating and bang on one another, and Wagner is right there. He's trying to take advantage and get into the top 5.
Nathaniel Sparks was shown the bumper a lap ago, and now he'll slide back into the 4th position as they make their way back up the hill. Up front, though, a couple corners to go. Nico Reger has been nearly perfect all day. Does Brian Ortiz have anything for him? They've got one more left-hander out of the carousel. Ortiz, he's going to take a look to the inside. He's got some space. Reger gets a nice run out of the final corner. They're going to drag race to the start-finish line. Can Ortiz make a move? He'll look to the inside. Not enough, as Nico Reger will hold on to pick up a hard-earned victory in round number 3 of the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich Tires. What a fantastic finish, Mark Janes. Brian Ortiz gave it everything he had. Joey Bickers comes home in 3rd, Nathaniel Sparks 4th, and then Robert Stout in 5th. But what a tremendous job by Nico Reger, who started the season with a 2nd and a 5th. Now he gets to go to victory lane here in Birmingham.
And from the outside of row number 2, Nick, I mean, he knifed his way through traffic, and he was patient earlier when drivers were roughing it up just a little bit, and what a great job of protecting that position. I mean, he was under assault the last 4 or 5 turns of that race, and he did not waver. Great piece of driving by that young driver.
And Mo, you get to know these drivers pretty well. This young driver, Nico Reger from Houston, Texas, Slipstream Performance is the organization there. That's a big win for him and this team.
It's a big win for him. It's the 3rd different driver to win in the first 3 races of this year, so it certainly looks like we're going to have an exciting championship. Nico's a great kid. He's very, very fast. He won a bunch of races last year. Sorry, 2 years ago. He didn't race in the series last year, and he's a great kid. He's fun to be around. He has a brother who races too, and I'm delighted to see him win a race.
Let's go down to pit lane. Tony Laporta, you've got a little bit more.
Yeah, guys, I know you got Mo Murray in there, and if he can hear me, I think it's just an interesting point to bring up. Mo and I called qualifying bright and early at 8 a.m. this morning, and we had just gotten done talking about Nico Reger and how we both agreed that he's a kid that has had really great speed each and every weekend of the season this last year and a half, and he just hasn't had the luck to finish it up. Today, I don't think it was much luck, Mo, but he sure made us look smart from qualifying as he gets the win here today.
And I can tell you, Tony, it takes a lot to make you and me look smart, and Nico did it today. Great win for him. Ran at the front all week so far, and he gets to do it all again tomorrow. And we'll see how he does that.
Mark James, there's a look at your top 10 here at Barber Motorsports Park in round number 3. And those 10 drivers, I mean, we were watching all day long, beat and bang and pull off some fantastic passes. Robert Noacker comes up and picks up a top 10. And
14 years old.
Yeah, we
How
talked
about
him.
14 years old and he gets a top 10.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
That is an unbelievable story, and you know, he ran well at Circuit of the Americas in both of those races. Was very, very patient, and that's a bright future for sure. One of the best drives, though, Brian Ortiz, and that's not a surprise. I mean, you know, starting a little deeper in the field than I'm sure he would have liked on the outside of row number 3. And I think he showed his veteran paces over the last 5 to 7 minutes of that race for sure.
Yeah, again, it's a championship-style drive today. Again, as you mentioned, didn't have the greatest qualifying run, but Brian Ortiz quietly putting together a championship-type campaign with the win at Circuit of the Americas to kick off the season, was really strong. Battled with Celine Roulade for the win in race 2, nearly swept the weekend. So for Ortiz, Mark, the driver from Puerto Rico, he starts the year first, second. Long way to go, but boy, you can't start the year much better than that when the goal is to win a championship.
And again, some issues with the streaming out of our hands. A little late joining the Mazda employees, the headquarters in Irvine, California, and also the Garage Team Mazda folks in Costa Mesa, California. We were happy to have them with us throughout the course of the second half of this race. Nick Yeoman?
Let's go to victory lane as Jake Query is standing by with today's winner.
The hugs and handshakes for Nico Reger, and among the first to come over to congratulate him, Brian Ortiz, who he held off. It's funny, slipstream performance, it says on the side of your car, and you were worried that Brian might have that slipstream at the end of that race. Take me through that finish.
That finish was crazy. I mean, we'd been battling all race. Everybody was on me. So I just tried to pick my line. I didn't want to do any dirty moves or anything. I didn't put a bumper on him. He didn't put a bumper on me, and we just kept it clean. I just tried to drive my fastest lap, and it was just enough to edge him out. So.
A couple of weeks from now, you'll celebrate your 20th birthday. I guess this is a good early present, huh?
Oh, this is the best present. It's nothing better than coming out here in the nice weather, hanging out with my dad, running with the guys at Slipstream. Awesome team, incredible guys, and we just kill it. It was an awesome day.
Congratulations on the win. You're halfway done for the weekend.
Thank you so much. We just got one more.
All right, Nico Reger, who wins here at Barber Motorsports Park. Let's quickly catch up with the man who finished in second, and I'm talking about Brian Ortiz. Let me get your viewpoint of that finish. It reminded me of Austin a little bit in the fact that it came down to the last corner. Take me through it.
Well, the whole race was pretty good. I didn't think we had a car to be there, so we had to fight really bad the whole race. Everybody was, I was impressed. Everybody raced really clean. So we're happy. We came close. I made a mistake in that last lap, and I thought I could have been closer to see what happened. But still, we're thinking about the big picture for the championship. We just need to be there at the end, and we're happy. Get second, get good points, and also I want to say this race is for a friend of mine that her mom died this week. So Tatiana, I love you. I wish you keep doing good, and we're here for you. And also my sponsor, Bella Group, Bella Racing. Couldn't do this without them.
What about for the people of Puerto Rico? Because again, it was a challenging week, but I know how many are back there watching you now.
Yeah, we had a challenging couple months for sure since both hurricanes. So the people in Puerto Rico are working really hard. They're doing the best they can. We still need help to get the I-line going, but we're getting back to our feet little by little. And like this, we just need to work hard and be there at the end like we did just today.
Congratulations on a second place finish.
Thank you very much.
Brian Ortiz finishes in second here in the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich Tires here at Barber Motorsports Park. Mark and Nick.
Brian Ortiz, really good driver, and Mark appears to be a really good guy as well, giving his thoughts and prayers to a friend as well, the folks in Puerto Rico. Fantastic race today, and the fun part, my friend, is we get to do it all again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm blown away by the top 10 and just how competitive this race was. I mean, you wondered after race number 2 at Circuit of the Americas if we were watching Celine Roulade get hot and kind of make a mockery of things, but I think today, maybe he needed a wet track. I don't know, as well as he did it. We're far from that. Maybe he needs to come back on Sunday from what we're hearing. But anyway, I mean, you look among the top 10, and any one of those kids get to victory lane, Nick. It's not going to be a big surprise for sure. So, as you suggest, going to be fun to watch it all unfold before our very eyes. And again, thanks to the Mazda employees at the new headquarters in Irvine, California, and the Garage Team Mazda agency folks in Costa Mesa, California, for joining us. Sorry the stream was a little late in arriving, and we look forward to you joining us tomorrow.
Yep, we'll wrap it up, and we will catch you tomorrow for MX-5 race number 2. 9:45 Central Time, 10:45 Eastern. Same crew, myself, Mark Janes, Jake Query, and Tony Laporta. Again, congratulations to Nico Reger, the victory lane winner here at Barber Motorsports Park in the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup, presented by BF Goodrich Tires.